Hello and welcome back to Clark Crawford Sports Talk. Today I'm going to be giving you an Astros season review as I'm going to go player by player on every player who was on the roster this season and give you my thoughts on how their season went and potentially what could be next for them if they're a free agent. I'm going to start with the catching position and go position by position with the catchers. We're going to start off with the starting catcher, Martin Maldonado. I'm going to quickly say he gets an F for his season grade. Martin Maldonado is now 37 years old. The man needs to retire. He played in 117 games this year, which was scary to even watch him play. He was awful. There's no other way to put it. Martin Maldonado, please retire. You've been awful most of your time here in Houston. You've come up with a couple of clutch hits, but for the most part, he's getting worse. He regressed majorly this season. He's the number 9 hitter, or he has been the number 9 hitter most of his major league career. Martin, please retire. You're supposedly supposed to be a defensive guru, and you even got worse on the defensive side of the ball this season. The two sides need as I'm going to call it, a divorce. Houston needs to move on from Martin Maldonado so they can stop having an automatic out in their lineup and let Yainer Diaz shine next season. Now, as I alluded to, here's Yainer Diaz. I will give Diaz a B for his season grade. We saw plenty of upside from Diaz, offensively and defensively. He's an incredible young talent at 25 years old and has some major potential if he can put all the pieces together and be the Astros catcher for the long-term future. He made all-rookie first team with 23 homers and only 355 regular season at-bats. Those numbers out to a full season, which is typically 500 plus at-bats for a player, an everyday player, he would have had over 30 home runs, which not many catchers in Major League Baseball hit 30 home runs, and many catchers struggle at the plate. Diaz also provided some outstanding defense, catching 15 base runners stealing this year. He brought the glove, he brought the bat. Now, where Diaz needs to improve is in his plate discipline. Him, like many Astros this season, chased too many pitches out of the zone. Discipline was part of his mistakes that he made this season. He flashes a lot of potential. He just needs to settle down, settle into the plate. If it were me, I would hang around Alex Bregman, who has some of the best plate discipline in all of MLB. Hang around him, learn the strike zone a little better, and Diaz should have a bright future for the Astros for years to come. Up is Cesar Salazar. He had 18 at-bats on the season. I'm going to mention him. He played on the team. So thank you for your contribution, Salazar. You're most likely going to be a career minor league player, but you contributed to the team. So Salazar, as a few players in this video, will get an incomplete grade from me because he only had 18 plate appearances this season. He played on the team, so he deserves some recognition. Moving on to the first base position, we're going to start off with the starter who played in 141 games, Jose Abreu. He signed a 3-year, just under $60 million contract in the 2023 offseason with the Astros, and I'm going to give Abreu a B for his season grade. Let me explain that because some of you are not going to agree with that grade. Abreu played most of the season. 141 games is a healthy amount of games, and other than an injury that plagued him a little bit in August and he came back early September, everything that happened, I'd call his season a success. Now, his .237 batting average was a disappointment, but when you dive deeper into it, Jose Abreu drove in 90 runs during the regular season, and he was the second best hitter in the playoffs, driving in 13 runs while hitting .295. He had a hot middle of the season and a hot end of the season, which gives him, for me, and a hot postseason, a B season grade overall. Now, a lot of you think, oh, Jose Abreu, wasn't good most of the year. He probably had 3 good months and 3 bad months. Let's be realistic. But for me, I'm looking forward to Abreu being back for 2 more seasons under contract. It was a solid signing. I'm excited to see Jose Abreu in 2024, hopefully in a fully healthy season. Now, the only other guy who made more than a little bit of contributions at first base and played more than just a handful of games. John Singleton played in 25 regular season games. He, like Salazar, receives an incomplete grade for me. He didn't play in enough games for me to give him a fair grade. He appeared in a few postseason pinch hitting at bats, but that's not enough to judge him. Singleton, like a few players in this video, are what I call, and I've heard others call, career 4A players. They're good AAA players who have come up to the majors a few times and struggled, and he's a 4A player who's realistically too good for double and AAA, but they're not quite good enough to stick on a major league roster. They can rake at AAA, but not put up good numbers in the majors. So John Singleton is mostly what I'm going to call a 4A player, and he receives an incomplete grade from me on his season. Next up is the second base position. Now, we all know who the Astros starting second baseman is. It's Jose Altuve. He played in 90 games during the 2023 regular season, largely due to a hit by pitch on the hand in the World Baseball Classic where he broke his hand, and he was out for about the first 60 or so games of the regular season. Now, Jose hit 17 homers during the season in 90 games. He also collected his 2,000th hit on his way to 3,000. I projected out Altuve has 3 to 5 good potential years left in him for his push for more World Series titles in Houston, along with continuing to push for 3,000 hits, as long as he can stay healthy. So with that being said, not too much more to be said about Altuve. He had a solid postseason as well, hitting several more home runs to add to his total. He's second all-time in postseason homers behind Manny Ramirez. And as long as Houston continues to get to the postseason, at some point he'll become the all-time postseason home runs leader. So with that being said, Altuve receives a grade of a B+ for his 2023 season. Next up on the second base list, Mauricio Dubon, who arguably is the biggest savior of the Astros season. There's a couple others that I'll highlight in the video when I go through them, but he's in the running for team MVP if he's not the team MVP. I mean, the guy filled in at second base, center field, played some left field, some shortstop. He even played 1 or 2 games at first base. I mean, if there was a most improved player in the MLB as they do in other sports, or kind of a comeback type player of the year, Mauricio Dubon needs to be on that list. Dubon was terrific, posting a career-high 278 batting average. What more can you say? He filled in great at second base. You just really hope he can replicate his 2023 season in 2024, as he'll be back with the Astros. And also another note that Dubon should receive credit for is he hit a career-high 10 home runs. He definitely bulked up in the offseason. And for me, Mauricio Dubon receives a grade of a B+ season. Next up for the Astros by position is Alex Bregman. He was Mr. Durability for the team this season, playing 161 out of 162 games. A good season for Alex Bregman, 25 homers, 98 RBIs. He also hit a few postseason home runs. He was okay in the postseason, not good, not great, but sadly, with how Houston's offense struggled, he was one of their top 5 hitters, even though he wasn't great in the postseason, but he was one of their top 5 hitters during that short span of their postseason run. Alex's defense was definitely the best of his career, adding on to his 25 homers and 98 RBIs. His durability was outstanding. His defense was lights out, and he's in the running for a Gold Glove. They have not announced the Gold Glove winners yet, so we don't know whether he gets it or not. But Alex Bregman's Gold Glove season, on my scale, gets him an A- for the year. He brought the defense. He was solid with his bat. Batting average a little down, but overall, Alex Bregman was one of the better players on the Astros this season. Shortstop is the next position up, and the Astros got subpar play from their shortstop this season, and you know him as Jeremy Pena, as I do. Coming off of his ALCS and World Series MVP, Pena, to put it in short terms, raised the bar for expectations this season. While I didn't believe he'd go for 40 home runs, 120 RBIs, that's a huge leap. I don't think Pena's that sort of player. But Pena hit 22 home runs last year, so I was thinking, okay, anywhere from that 20 to 25 range and drive in more runs. this year than he did last year would be a good season for Jeremy Pena. Also, he was coming off of a Gold Glove award, so he really had a terrific year last year. Solid in the regular season as a rookie, and the best player on the team in the postseason. But Pena in his sophomore year regressed majorly, and I think it could be a potential problem for the Astros in the near future and definitely in the long-term future, because Pena, after letting Carlos Correa walk, showed he has potential to be the shortstop of the future. But here's the problem. Pena's defense regressed, as he's not even a Gold Glove finalist after winning the Gold Glove last year. He was solid, but not great in my mind. I think he made far too many errors this season and just too many bobbles with the ball in the infield. And also, here's my biggest take. Pena hit 22 home runs as a rookie. He only hit 10 in his sophomore year, which I think is the biggest concern going forward for Pena. If you see Pena, you've ever seen him work out or seen him take BP before games or anything, Pena is probably one of the strongest players on the Astros. Just look at the guy. Look at a photo of him. Pena should be muscling baseballs out 20 to 30 home runs a year. He's got power, but for whatever reason, Pena took a major regression back, and if Pena continues to struggle in year 3, Houston is going to have to consider looking for a different long-term shortstop. With the regression this year, receives a C- in my book. We move to the Astros outfielder. Left field was not quite a revolving door, but several people played left field for the Astros this season. We're going to start off with the disappointing Uncle Mike, as he's known as Michael Brantley. He only played in 15 regular season games, and he played in most of the postseason games. Brantley had too many setbacks, as it was originally reported he was going to be ready for opening day, and it was setback after setback. They paid him $12 million to play in less than 30 games this season, including his 15 regular season games and his postseason games. Less than 30 games for $12 million. I wish I could sign up for that kind of deal. But Brantley, unfortunately, that shoulder wasn't healthy. Even when they said he was healthy, I questioned it. Brantley did okay, but after missing the majority of the 2022 season, all the postseason, and even more of the 2023 season than the 2022 season, in my opinion, because Brantley missed way too much time, he receives an F because of his health and not being available to the Astros this season. Moving on from Brantley, next up we have Corey Julks, who was a surprise addition to the Astros roster coming out of spring training. He played in 93 games for the Astros. Julks got up to a nice start this season, but after the month of June, his numbers drastically fell off a cliff. And even though Julks helped the Astros early on this season, his July and August numbers were abysmal, and they were more than enough to get him demoted back to AAA for the remainder of the season. Early in the season, he showed a decent amount of power, some solid defense, and the ability to steal some bases, which helped Houston produce some runs. But overall, Julks had an okay rookie year, playing 93 games, as I said. But like Salazar and Singleton, Julks is largely another player in Houston's system who is a 4A player. So for me, I'm not going to spend too much more time on Julks. He gets a C for his season grade. Next guy on the left fielder list is Yordan Alvarez. He's a fan favorite in Houston, playing in 114 games. Unfortunately, he sustained an oblique injury, which cost him 48 games on the year. One thing to note is, I wouldn't say Alvarez is necessarily injury prone, but he has sustained at least one injury in every season, costing him some games, other than 2019, where he made his MLB debut. So it's something to watch as his career progresses. One or hopefully multiple seasons in a row where he doesn't spend time with an IL stint. Though, for as his season goes, he still hit 31 homers, driving in 97 runs. For the 114 games he played, that's an outstanding number, as he was the best player on the Astros team, the ALDS and ALCS, easily to say. He just was popping homers left and right. Alvarez is one of the very few A-letter grades, as he had an outstanding year, that I'll hand out to any Astros player for the 2023 season. So hats off to Alvarez. I hope you continue to mash homers, RBIs, drawing a bunch of walks, and wreaking havoc on the league for years to come. Lastly, for the left field position, he's a left fielder slash center field, so I'm going to put him in the left field slash center field position as he plays mostly both, and that's Chas McCormick. He played 115 games this year, mostly split between left and center. He played a handful of games in right field. Chad's had a breakout year, hitting 22 homers, 70 RBIs, both career highs. And if it weren't for an early season back injury where he missed nearly a month, his numbers could have very well been in the ballpark of 25 to 30 homers, along with closer to 90, if not exceeding 90 RBIs. Chas is a more than serviceable MLB player who does a solid job when he's called upon. He masters left-handed hitting. Now, Chas could be an everyday 130, 140 game position player, starter, if he just hit right-handed pitching, maybe 10 to 15 to 20 points higher. I like Chas as a player. Now, the question, just like with Jeremy Pena that I mentioned earlier, have we already seen the best of Chas McCormick with his 2023 numbers? Now the big question is, can he replicate it in 2024 and beyond? He's likely going to be with the team unless a surprise trade comes because he's on the cheap on a rookie contract, and Chas is near and dear to a lot of Astro fans' hearts as they have the Chas chomp out there. There's a few guys that have it going, and hats off to them. That's a pretty cool thing that they started a Chas fan club. He's a hero in Astros' eyes with his catch that JT Realmuto hit in Game 5 of the 2022 World Series. And for that, Chas receives a B-plus grade for me with his season performance. I'd love to see Chas replicate it, but we will see in 2024 if Chas can produce even better numbers in his career. On the list of positions, that brings us Jake Meyers. He played his first full season with the Astros as he was up for the back half of 2021, and then 2022 he spent a lot of time on the injured list, and Jake hit 227 in 2023 for a second consecutive season. Myers showed some promise in the 2021 back half of the year that he could potentially be a nice breakout player and maybe a 250, 265 hitter, but since he got injured in the 2021 playoffs, Jake Meyers has not been the same. I think potential has definitely faded because of that shoulder injury he sustained trying to rob a home run in Chicago against the White Sox. I don't think he fully trusts his shoulder or his body since the injury. I believe it still has lingering effects from what I see with Myers. His swing just seems slow. His arm isn't great. And I believe the injury is definitely bothering him from more than 2 years ago now. Jake Meyers, as the case with Jeremy Pena and possibly other Astros in this video, are their best days behind him. Jake Meyers receives a C- for his 2023 grade. As for the everyday players and the last position player we're going to mention mostly in talks, and we'll mention a couple right after Kyle Tucker who made minimal contributions. So Kyle Tucker, if we go by his regular season numbers, he's been a two-time All-Star in back-to-back seasons now. He would easily receive a grade if it was just the regular season of an A+ for his terrific contributions. He hit 30 homers, 112 RBIs. Those speak for themselves. He led the American League in RBIs. He also sold 30 bases, which is a career high, while playing 157 games. So Kyle Tucker, A+ for the regular season. The problem is, Kyle Tucker, and it pains me to say this because I'm the biggest Kyle Tucker fan that there is out there, he was worse than Martin Maldonado in the playoffs. That has to be noted. He hit no homers, only drove in one run in the playoffs. He had small contributions to the team. So because of Kyle Tucker's playoff performance, he receives a B+ for his overall season grade. He has to drop a full letter grade for me because his postseason was that awful, unfortunately, and the Astros stalled out in the ALCS, and Kyle Tucker was not the only reason, but a big reason for that. I mentioned, as I was talking about Kyle Tucker, there's 3 other position players that made contributions to the team. They will receive incomplete grades because They only played in a handful of games for the team, but they did get to the big leagues, so I feel they deserve some recognition. And thank you for providing some help when the Astros need it. Those three names are Bly Madriz, Gray Kessinger, and David Hensley. As Hensley was supposed to, if you heard from spring training, was supposed to make large contributions to the Astros this year, but unfortunately faltered out early in the year and spent almost the rest of the season play. So thank you to Madriz, Kessinger, and Hensley for their contributions as they receive incomplete grades as Astros players. That leads us to the Astros pitching staff, and specifically the starting pitching we're going to start with. And the Astros had 22 pitchers make contributions to the club. So with that being said, Framber Valdez is up first on my list. He was an all-star this season, so that tells you he had a good first half of the year. Now, the downside is his second half was more than forgettable. I mean, other than his no-hitter in the second half of the year, he was one of the worst starting pitchers in all of baseball in the second half of the season. And for Framber, that continued in the playoffs, which you can arguably say he was the worst starting pitcher in the major leagues in the playoffs. He was just abysmal. There's no other way to put it. He hasn't been the same. He hasn't been the Framber Astros fans were hoping for since, in my opinion, really mid-May. And the Framber we were hoping, the vintage Framber we got last postseason, the Astros are hoping they can get a long-term extension done with him. Now, the biggest question is, with how awful he was, does Framber really deserve a long-term extension? After the second half of the year, he showed the team. So his last 15 to 20 starts, including the postseason, were atrocious. So one of the big questions is, should you extend Framber or should you make him prove it for another year before you extend him? I believe some kind of extension gets done at some point. I don't know when that'll come. But as for his season grade, Framber deserves a C+. Brown is next. Now, his Justin Verlander-esque pitching was unfortunately subpar, as it's going to be a common theme in this video. A lot of Astro pitchers having down seasons compared to their 2022 years, and some of them compared to their career numbers. Now, this was Hunter Brown's first full season, and it had many, many, many ups and downs. April, Brown was one of the better pitchers in baseball, as that was easily his best month of his short MLB career so far. Most of the rest of his season was forgettable. I believe Hunter Brown showed enough flashes during the year, enough good starts, that the Astros fans can remain optimistic that he has a bright future. He's only going to be going into 2024 with his second full season. He's 25 years old. He's got an electric arm. He can pump 99 on the radar gun. From Hunter Brown, I believe Hunter Brown has nowhere to go but up, and he'll have a bounce back year in 2024. Brown, like Framber, gets a C for his season performance. The next pitcher I'm going to talk about is Christian Javier. Now, as I've noted, we saw regression from Javier just as we did Framber and Hunter Brown short stint from the previous year. The bright side, one of the only bright sides of Javier's year is he did throw 162 innings. He didn't deal with injuries, but his biggest issue continues to be pitching efficiency, not throwing enough strikes and walking too many batters. The next step in his development, he must throw more strikes and be more efficient in the zone to get deeper into the games. There's too many starts. He's going 3, 4, and 5 innings. If he's going to be a long-term starter, he has got to be a 6-inning plus pitcher. His final start in Game 7 of the ALCS, that was a nightmare. He only got 1 out. As the rest of his postseason, he did step his game up. Now, his regular season was not nearly good enough. Like I said, he's going to have to get deeper into the games. So, along with Brown and Framber, Javier receives a grade of a C, another subpar pitching performance on the team, as he was not very good this season. There's a lot of room to improve for Javier in 2024 as he receives a contract extension, so hopefully he can live up to that next season. One of the best pitchers for the Astros in his rookie campaign, which I'll call it a success, as he wasn't good in his last appearance in Game 7 of the ALCS, but overall, he had a really solid rookie year, and that is rookie JP France. Love his mustache, gotta mention that. JP was not expected to even make his 2023 debut unless a lot of things went wrong. But due to several injuries to the pitching staff, JP stepped into the role and he filled it well. With a 3.83 season ERA, and in my opinion, he should finish probably 4th or 5th, maybe 6th or 7th, but definitely top 10 in the Rookie of the Year voting. France was an outstanding surprise as a rookie. He stepped into a lot of hostile environments on the road for a rookie and pitched well for the most part. Now, one of the big questions for JP France is, with the pitching Houston likely as coming back, does he have a guaranteed roster spot? That remains to be seen. I would love to see JP in the bullpen or as the starter in 2024. But as of right now, I'm not sure he will have a roster spot next season. But if France does, I can't wait to have him back on the team. And for France's performance, he receives a B- for his season grade. Massive acquisition to the Astros roster is Justin Verlander. He was a blockbuster move, giving up 2 of the Astros' top 5 prospects. The Astros paid a major price to get him back, but I think it was well worth it. The Mets ate a major chunk of his salary in the rest of this season, next season, and potentially with his what's essentially a player option in 2025. The Mets are going to pay a lot of money, and Houston gets him on the cheap. And the reason he left is because he wanted more money, and he came off of a Cy Young Award winning season in 2022. Now, unfortunately for the Astros, when they acquired Verlander, they had World Series hopes, which they fell short of this calendar year. Verlander, as I mentioned, is under contract 100% for 2024, and more than likely, I believe if he pitches 140 innings, he'll be under contract in 2025, and his option will kick in. Verlander pitched well for a 40-year-old in the regular season. He was their most reliable starter in the postseason as well. The big question for Verlander is, hopefully a 41-year-old pitcher can maintain good form and be the pitcher the Astros desperately need him to be at the top of the rotation. As an Astro and being a 40-year-old pitcher, with his season with the team, I give Verlander a B+ performance overall. Now, the next 2 pitchers I'm going to talk about that we will review are guys who are up and down from AAA to the majors a handful of times. The first is Brandon Bielak. There was a time in the middle of the season before Verlander that there was a short time right around late May to mid-June that Bielak was actually the best starter for a couple-week stretch on the team. Brandon deserves credit for that, and he'll likely hang around the Major League and AAA roster for as long as he's an Astro. He's a nice fill-in starter or a fill-in long relief guy, short-term on periods of Major League rosters. He's never going to be a guy that's a lights-out or dominating pitcher for more than maybe a couple of starts at a time or a couple of appearances, but Bielak can do a nice job overall. As for Bielak, with the tough situations that he came into this season, I think he deserves a grade of a B for his season performance. As I mentioned, the next pitcher was another pitcher who made nice contributions to the rotation and pitched a little bit out of the bullpen. He was up and down all year. And the next guy on the list is Ronel Blanco. The Astros are high on Blanco. He's still a young pitcher, under the age of 30. He made several starts and also was the long man out of the bullpen to start the year. Blanco, if he continues to work hard at his craft, he will project to be possibly a sneaky addition that still I don't believe every team knows about out of the bullpen next year, with some pending free agents that I'll talk about later on in the video when I get to the relievers. As for Blanco, he's probably got a good chance to make the team, which there will likely be a few roster spots open. I have high hopes for Blanco in the 2024 season. As for his 2023 grade, Blanco receives a C+ for his contribution. Next up for the Astros, Starting pitcher Jose Urquidy. He missed over 3 months due to injury early in the season. Unfortunately for him, he helped Houston with some nice outings down the stretch and some spot starts late in September, helping Houston clinch their division title. He pitched well in his past few outings in the season and had a solid postseason as well. For Urquidy standards, it's a disappointing season due to injury, and overall in the regular season, he didn't pitch particularly well. Now, hopefully, he can return to the rotation and return to health in 2024, and along with returning to form. Jose Urquidy, like many of the Astros pitchers, receives a grade of a C from me for his performance in 2023. Next up, and the last starting pitcher who made a contribution to the team was Luis Garcia. Unfortunately, he started 6 games and then suffered season-ending Tommy John injury. It's likely the earliest he pitches next season because it typically takes pitchers 12, sometimes even up to 16 months, but usually 14 months to recover from Tommy John. It's unlikely we see him till probably July, if not August. Worst case scenario, he misses all of 2024. Hopefully that doesn't happen for the Astros, but it is possible. So we have to note that. My best guess is he'll probably return in July or August and hopefully help the Astros push for another division title next year. That'll be a nice addition if he can come back for the 2024 season. But largely due to injury, he was a non-factor for most of the season, pitching in 6 games, as I mentioned. And realistically, for me, it's not enough to judge him on a full season performance. So Luis Garcia receives an incomplete grade for me, as he was not healthy enough to pitch in enough games, in my opinion. Now, the last starting pitcher who needs to be noted, who did not pitch at all this season, which he may not pitch in 2024, I don't have high hopes for, and that's Lance McCullers Jr. The guy is injury prone. There's no other way to put it. He's constantly getting hurt. He got hurt again in spring training and missed the whole season. If he pitches in 2024, great. But those of you who are out there as Astros fans that are all, trade McCullers. Well, I got some news for you. It's not that easy. This is not MLB The Show. This is not General Manager Armchair. You can't just trade a player that easy, and you also can't release him because Lance McCullers is under contract for 3 more seasons at $17 million on average per year. That's a massive contract, and with his injury history, that's not an easy player to trade. And if you did trade him and somebody were to take on that salary, you're likely going to have to eat more than 12, probably up to $15 million per year for someone to even take a chance on McCullers, which is news for you Astros fans, not going to happen. So you're stuck with Lance McCullers whether you like him or not. If he's healthy and can make contributions, great. But like I said, I don't have high hopes for him, but they're going to expect him to be a factor in 2024, so I'm going to mention him, and we're going to see if he can make any sort of contribution to the team next season. With all the starters being talked about, we move to the bullpen. First up with the bullpen, well, he was the best pitcher on the Astros this season, and that would be Bryan Abreu. His 1.75 ERA bested his previous career high or career low of an ERA of 1.94 in 2022. He improved it to 1.75 this season. Abreu's been a monster out of the bullpen the last 2 years as the 8th inning guy in the Astros' deep bullpen. Most teams would love to have him as their closer. The Astros are fortunate enough they have one of the best back-end bullpens in the majors, and Abreu is their 8th inning guy. Abreu will be back next season as he's under contract for a few more years at rookie-level money. He's going to be a cheap player. He's a 26-year-old breakout pitcher the past couple of seasons, and like I said, they have him under contract. If he has another good season, I hope they lock him up long-term on a 3-4+ year contract. I think Abreu's worth every penny, and locking him up long-term would be a smart move for the Astros. Abreu, for me, receives an A+ for his superb season. The Astros' 7th inning guy, another elite relief weapon out of the pen, is Hector Neris, who for the second straight year, like Abreu, was outstanding, and Neris actually in 2023 had a 171 ERA, so he even outshined Abreu's 175 ERA for best on the team. After two incredible seasons, Neris has an $8.5 million player option that I fully expect him to decline because, being realistic with the last 2 years Neris has had on the open market out there for relievers, Neris could probably get up to 10, 11, maybe even 12 million if a team is really willing to overpay for him. With the Astros payroll, they could also get outbid for Neris if he decides to become a free agent, which could leave a gigantic gap in the back end of Houston's bullpen. I believe, other than finding a left fielder, this would be my top priority if I were Astros GM Dana Brown, is locking Neris up on another 2 or a 3-year contract if he declines his player option. If he opts into his player option, I would still extend his contract by 2 more years after that to keep Neris in Houston for a few more years. With that being said, Neris' outstanding season deserves a letter grade of an A. Another crafty old reliable veteran in Houston's bullpen, Phil Maton, had a solid campaign of 2023 for his season. He's a good, mostly reliable reliever. He won't blow you away with his fastball. He doesn't throw 99, the sexy, modern day, throwing 100 out of the bullpen. But he's been a nice addition to the Astros. He was acquired at the 2021 deadline as Houston traded Miles Straw to Cleveland, which netted the Astros Phil Maton and, of course, Yainer Diaz. So what a great trade that was for the Astros. Back to Maton's 2023 year. He's been good for them, but Maton's a free agent. Unless Houston can get him on a cheap 1 to 2 year deal, I think Houston lets Maton walk in free agency. Me as a fan, I wouldn't mind Maton back, but I think the likely scenario is the Astros let him walk because they have some other tough roster decisions to make. As for Maton, I believe he deserves a grade of a B for his season performance. Next up for the Astros in the bullpen, Ryan Pressly saved 31 out of 37 games in the regular season, and once again, he was nails in the playoffs, not blowing a save in the postseason. The Astros got him from Minnesota at the 2018 deadline. A lot of Astros fans wish they had a different closer, but here's the thing. If you go back and look since he became the full-time closer in 2020, he's been one of the best closers in baseball. Now, I know a lot of fans think, oh, he blows too many games. His ERA is too high for a closer. Well, I'm going to be realistic. Ryan Pressly, for the most part, is nails. Now, when he gives up runs, he usually gives them up in bulk. There's no denying that. But Ryan Pressly is a darn good major league closer, and he's more than capable of doing a great job for Houston, which he has done since he was acquired in 2018. Ryan Pressly is under contract for 2 more years guaranteed. So for you fans that don't like Ryan Pressly in the 9th inning, well, get used to it. You're going to see him on the mound for 2 more years in the 9th inning in an Astros uniform. Ryan Pressly, a B+ for his solid performance in the regular season and his great performance in the postseason. Now, this next name, like Phil Maton, is a pending free agent, and that's Ryan Stanek. Now, Stanek had his career best year in 2022. Stanek in 2022 had a sub-2 ERA, but the problem this season was his ERA ballooned to 4.09. Not the kind of numbers you're looking to see in a contract year. He had quite the number of struggles, and like Maton, I expect Stanek to be unlikely to return to the team in 2024 as the Astros have other roster decisions to make. You can find another cheaper reliever out there on the open market, and I believe Stanek will want a nice raise as he's been a solid pitcher for a few years here in Houston. But I think it's time, just like I said with Maton, to move on from both of the pitchers and find other options in the relief market or have other internal options ready to go. With his step back this season, I have Stanek receiving a letter grade of a C. Next up in the relief market is Seth Martinez. He pitched 43 innings for the Astros in 2023. Unfortunately for him, his 5.23 ERA was not ideal. Like many Houston pitchers, his numbers regress from 2022 to 2023. At 29, he's under team control. I believe he has a good chance to be a part of Houston's 2024 bullpen. I like Martinez overall. I think he's a good pitcher. He just has some control problems that can bite him in the butt from time to time. It's the roster in 2024, as in 2022, he had a career best 2.09 ERA. So to me, that shows he's more than capable of being a reliable bullpen arm in Houston's pen, hopefully in 2024. And they're hoping he can return to his 2022 form. Martinez receives a letter grade of a C for his subpar 2023 performance. Last pitcher to talk about in Houston's bullpen is going to be Kendall Graveman. Kendall Graveman was acquired at the deadline for the second time in the last 2 years by the Astros, as they got him from Seattle at the 2021 trade deadline. And in the 2023 deadline, the recent one, they got him from the Chicago White Sox. Graveman had a 2.42 ERA with the Astros in 23 regular season games. Graveman was either nails or he was a bit shaky after being reacquired by the Astros for the second time in 3 years, as I mentioned at the deadline. Graveman, the big reason they acquired him is because he's under contract next year, and in case some of these relievers, as I mentioned, I expect Stanek and Maton to walk, and if Neris walks as well in free agency, Graveman can step into the seventh inning role easily, and if Houston has Neris back, well then you've got a nice four-man punch in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th innings with Graveman 6, Neris 7, Abreu 8, and Presley 9, providing they're all healthy. I believe it was a nice move to shore up the bullpen at the deadline. So for me, Graveman, who did not pitch in the postseason, unfortunately, he was injured. He receives a B- grade from me. Lastly, for Houston pitching, there are 5 pitchers who made some contributions, and they deserve some recognition. They all get incomplete grades from me. These pitchers, because they didn't pitch too much, maybe 5 to 10 games max. Those pitchers are Parker Mushinski, Sean Dubin, Matt Gage, Bennett Souza, and Joe Kunal. Thanks to all of them for helping in a time of need. We'll see if any of those guys get invited to spring training and see if they have a chance to make the 2024 roster. That's going to do it for my Astros season review. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see y'all next time in my next video. Don't forget to like and comment on my videos, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And as always, thank you for watching.